Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to our show, our platform. We are Option Forward. I'm always joined by the second half of the show, GQ Nesto. How you doing today?
What it do? What it do? I'm doing good.
All right. Did you sleep well?
Yeah, I did.
All right.
I got my naps in.
You got your naps in. All right. And ladies and gentlemen, we are for a very, very special treat. I would consider this gentleman to be someone who has defied the laws of gravity. And what I mean by that is when you are able to escape the situation and environment you in and turn something that may be a negative into a positive outcome and learn from what normally separates family, which is finances, and utilize that to empower, instruct, and encourage. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest today, Mr. Barry Queen. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. I need you to, give me an announcement every time I walk in the room. I like that.
I got you, man. I
Press
got
play
you.
on that. Let me press play on that.
Like what old boy said earlier, I got to wake up to positive affirmations.
Yeah.
He can't even get out of bed until he hears something positive. But that's cool though, man. I appreciate you being here.
Thank
How are you doing? How was traffic?
Traffic wasn't too bad. I'm doing good, man. I'm blessed. You know, it could be worse. It's real good right now, so I'm blessed, man. I feel
You
good.
had an active day so far today?
Man, my girl has got me. I've probably got 5 other things to do after this.
Okay.
That I don't even know about yet, but I'm good, man.
Politics in the future for you? Because you be on the move. You be moving for what I'm seeing.
I don't know, man. I'm open. Whatever
You're
God
open?
wants, man. I'm open, man. I'm
Okay.
open.
God-fearing, man.
Definitely.
Okay.
Only way, man. Only way.
Hey, you right about that, man. You right about that. Let's just get to the obvious, man. I know last weekend was kind of tough where being you wanna just enlighten us on who's your team in football?
Oh man, Eagles all day. I'm from
Okay.
Philly, born and bred. And it's okay. We didn't win, but a lot of teams didn't even get a chance to play in that game. So I'll take my losses. We had a fair amount of wins this year. We'll be back next year. We'll be strong. We'll be better. Jalen's young,
Yeah.
our quarterback. And we have a great offensive line, great defensive line, great receivers. We'll be back.
I hope so. I mean, I was going for y'all,
Yeah,
and I was kind of upset.
Yeah.
I was like,
that penalty at the end really
Yeah.
hurt.
Can you really put the game in the balance on the come on?
No,
You had
we really should have put him away.
right.
I will say I think Mahomes kind of fooled us because when he had that when he kind of
Yeah.
that
Yeah, I know
ankle,
it, yeah.
into the second quarter, I'm like, all right, he's done.
Hey, God did.
And he
right?
came out
Well,
and
Jesus.
ran.
Jesus will make a way. You
I
don't think
know,
it
man.
was something miraculous?
I don't. I think he was kind of faking.
Okay.
I don't know, man. He
It
was on
just
the
didn't-
sideline bumping his head.
That's
then
a
he came out
genius.
and played.
Genius
he played,
move.
He played better.
Yeah, he did.
He played better.
Or maybe something they gave him at halftime. You know what I'm saying? A
Maybe.
little cocaine.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
You never know.
So growing up in Philadelphia, man, I've had a conversation with you in preparation for this time in this space. What was your childhood like? What was it like growing up in Philly for you?
Well, it was very interesting, man. Grew up in a single parent household. My mom and my dad got divorced when I was 2. And my mom loved me. She did the best she could, but I had a lot of unique experiences growing up. I would see my dad on the weekends. He was a basketball player, so that was kind of what brought us together. Hooping, playing ball. I was every weekend I'm playing ball with my dad. That was pretty cool. But I had a lot of challenges growing up. I don't even know where to start. Before I was in the 7th grade, I was expelled from 3 schools.
You was a troublemaker.
I was a class clown.
I can't see it. I can't see it.
I was a class clown, always seeking attention. There's a lot of reasons for that, but
Right.
I got a chance to get out of a really difficult situation, but it was a lot of challenges growing up in Philly, to say the least.
All right. I would say from the outside, I think oftentimes as a society, as a people, we always look at the end product, and we don't know that journey that led you to the point that you are today and present. I know what you do for a living, and that's why we're here. We're going to talk about that. But explain exactly what it is that you do and how you arrived at this point?
Yeah, so for this will be my 15th year in business. I am a financial advisor. So I work with people to help them really navigate some of the most critical financial decisions they're going to make in their life. Like, planning for retirement, getting a windfall of cash and trying to figure out what to do with it. Running a small business, trying to navigate certain decisions as it relates to tax planning. There's from A to Z. Anything in that spectrum. I've got clients who are just everyday hardworking people, and then I have people that I work with that you see on TV every day. Now, how I got there, honestly, I don't even know how I got there. Quite frankly, there was no financial literacy at all growing up for me. I didn't know what a stock, a bond, a mutual fund was. I didn't know what an LLC was. I didn't know about any of that kind of stuff. I just knew that we didn't have a lot. And for me, how I got really into this line of work is, there's a few things that I went through growing up where, if I can think back on those experiences, it was a lot of the pain that I experienced is because of the lack of literacy that existed, that really wasn't there, and also lack of resources. So for me, I became a financial advisor because the way I looked at it is that if I could help people address this really critical area of their lives and give them guidance, then I can help people avoid pain. Mm. And that's kind of how I got into it. Is I just wanted to help people avoid some of the experiences that I had, and even if, let's say, they already went through it, to give them that guidance so that their children wouldn't have to have those experiences.
Now, tell me about how your relationship with your father. I think you had mentioned something along the lines where your relationship went kind of like influence your entrepreneurial spirit. Like, tell us about your dad.
Yeah, my dad, I'm named after him. Everywhere I go, I can't escape him. He was somebody that, he was the first person I ever saw that ran his own business. So he started a business when I was about 10 or 11 years old. It was just a corner store, but it was a big deal to me because, he had employees. He would let me work in the store with him. I was actually underage cooking food for people, cooking cheesesteaks in Philly. And it was a unique experience. And I remember at that time, financially, it seemed like he was doing pretty well, and, without going too far into the weeds, there was a lot of things that happened over time where I just kind of saw him deteriorate as a person, as a dad. A lot of crazy experiences. I can tell you one experience I had, someone tried to kill him in front of me. I had to stop somebody from trying to kill him. Dang. I had to take my father's gun and pull it on two men trying to kill my dad in front of me. I was 11 or 12 years old at that time. So it's like all these crazy experiences I had with him, and then he lost that business. And when he lost his business, I just felt like I lost my dad. I feel like he lost himself. He turned heavy to drugs, alcohol, a lot of other crazy things. And, when I think about my childhood, for me, it was my dad kind of being absent and then my mom kind of being upset that she had to be all these things. Mm. And she just couldn't manage it all. She was trying to be a provider. She was trying to be a mom. She was trying to be a dad in some form or fashion. She was trying to be all these things, and she just couldn't manage it all. And then we had our own unique experiences because of that. And so, my dad, I always look back on my childhood and say he was kind of a huge influence on me in getting in this line of work, because what I recognize is that my dad really didn't have someone he could sit down with and just be truly transparent about what he was doing with his money. There was other issues as well, but I felt like by me being a financial advisor, I could be what my dad didn't even know he needed. And I could be that person for anyone that wanted to work with me. So.
All right. GQ.
No, I mean, it's definitely inspirational, refreshing. I mean, there's so many, there's not really a lot of words to express that, because it's something that obviously shapes you, and you could either like be an asset to this world or you could be a liability. And I think that understanding the liability part and then trying to better yourself, I think is pretty dope. I think it's definitely it's something that obviously not a lot of people can balance to stay within the journey and not fall off, because it's easier said than done, especially in Philadelphia. Like, don't you guys have like a prison in your stadium or something like that? You know what I mean? like
yeah.
That can't be good, So
Yeah.
that's pretty dope.
Yeah.
So you a baller though, right? So you grew up playing basketball,
Yeah.
and that led you into college, right?
Mhm.
So what was your experience like? Was you allowed your athletic abilities to get you into school, or were you
good?
walk in or walk on?
My story is literally like just constantly bobbing and weaving. If I were to tell you how I did play basketball in college. I was a walk on. I don't know if you've seen the movie Rudy.
I've definitely
Okay.
seen Rudy.
I went through probably 75% of those things, right? And so I've just been a grinder, there wasn't a whole lot of preparation for me going into college. I only applied to one college. I remember, I had some scouts come to a high school game, and I had a bad interaction with a ref during that game. And I remember at the end of that game, my coach telling me there was a scout there, and he didn't like your attitude. I had 30 points in the game, but it didn't matter. It's because I always had this chip on my shoulder. I just wasn't a whole person. I was very broken, and I ended up using that chip on my shoulder to walk onto the team. I went to Norfolk State University in Norfolk, Virginia, but I went through hell for that to happen, and I made that happen, and then it ended up not even being able to play. And there were so many things that happened from me leaving high school to walking on this team. I lost one of my closest friends to suicide. I was the last person he ever spoke to. Stayed up all night with this guy, and he ends up killing himself. So it's like my story is literally, I just feel like it's just, I kind of just like constantly like just navigating significant trauma and challenges. And the basketball for me was something I always dreamed of doing, and I put everything I had into it. And it never quite materialized to what I imagined it to be, but it was the greatest blessing in the world for me, because what actually happened is I walked on my sophomore year. Coach didn't let me play. I said, you know what, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I went through hell. What I didn't tell you is that I used to suffer from anxiety attacks, and I had my first anxiety attack when I was a sophomore. And I was a year of just constant like panic attacks, like every day. And a lot of those anxiety attacks actually came because I had gone through all this trauma, all these experiences, and I never processed any of it. And then when I lost my friend, I think that triggered it, and then it just went down. It just got really bad. And so I went through all of this stuff to play ball, and then it didn't work out. But it was the greatest blessing, because what ended up happening is that I ended up getting a job working for Bank of America. I was 19 years old. I needed to figure out how to stay in school. I was still paying out-of-state tuition because I didn't have my own place yet. And that was pretty expensive. And so I got a job working in a call center. And it was 300 people in that call center. And it was a 10-hour shift I worked. So I went to school from 8 a.m. To 3, and then I worked from 3:30 to midnight. And I was the number one sales rep in that call center. And I made more money than probably most people who had even a real job, who were like in their careers, because I had to. And I went to school, I went to work, went to school, went to work.
Where did you find time to study?
Honestly, I never studied.
Monkey notes.
I didn't. I was so tired. I would get off work, I would try to study, and I would always fall asleep, with my book in my face. And I naturally learned how to get by. I finished with like a 3.2 GPA because I was naturally kind of a smart guy, learner, but I never really had time to study. I was just like, I had to grow up so fast, you know? And for me, it was like, there was no backup plan. Like, there was no exit strategy. It's like, who I'm gonna call? Like, I got, this has to work. You know, there is no,
Yeah.
there is no backup plan.
No alternatives.
Yeah. So,
Do you regret any of that?
um, there are elements of that time of my life where I feel like I never got a chance to live because I was so busy surviving. I have a tattoo on my arm that says "Live, don't exist," and I feel like a lot of my life I was just surviving. Like, I was just navigating circumstances that I was just dealing with the hand of cards that I was dealt. Like, you know, it was just constantly, you know, this is the most peace I think I've ever had in my life in the last couple of years, because it's like I finally know what it is to breathe and live. When you are just trying to survive, it's like you don't even have a moment to process anything, because you're just like, it's almost like I've always lived on defense. I'm always prepared for the next tragedy, you know, like something is about to happen. And this is probably the first time in my life where it's just smooth. It's very unusual for me though, you know? It's like I've had to learn how to adjust to life not being volatile, you know? I don't know how to explain it.
But don't you think that a lot of the stuff? I mean, well, one, do you feel that if you hadn't gone through all that, like, do you think you would have a different outcome today, or do you feel that regardless, this was your destiny?
I definitely believe this was my destiny, because if I were to describe to you like what my life looks like now, you would know that there is definitely a God. Like, there is no, there's no algorithm for this. I'm one of one in the sense that, if you go to my family and you look at my family and you look at me, you'll be like, well, how did you get out of that? And I love my family, but it just, there was a purpose. There's so many circumstances where I could have lost my life and I didn't. I could just think of so many different things where it's just like a grace over me, And, being in finance, it's interesting because there are a very small percentage of people of color that actually make it in this line of work. And, after 10 years, you probably have less than a 10% retention ratio. And so being as though I didn't come from this environment where there was a lot of literacy, I don't have this rich uncle, this rich cousin. I don't have this Rolodex of relationships that I could tap into. I just literally built my business just grinding, just meeting people and just having a heart to serve people and just hoping at some point that would pay off, And, I started in Virginia. I was in New York. Now I'm here in California, and it's like I really couldn't. It is my purpose, yeah, for sure.
That's cool.
Can you explain? I know when we were talking about like what a custodian, like the terminology custodian and facilitators. Can you enlighten us and explain what that exactly means?
Yeah. So when you work with a financial advisor, the thing that you must know is that person does not have the ability to take custody of your money. They facilitate investments on your behalf, and you sign some kind of contract or document giving them permission to make decisions on your behalf, to have discretion. Okay. So when I use that terminology of a custodian is just the entity that holds your money. So Bank of America, for example, is a custodian because you go to that bank, that money is held with that institution. I am an advisor, but most importantly, I'm a facilitator. So when you come to me and you say, hey, look, I've got this money and I want to do something with it, I'm not going to take your money and put it in an account, in the name of my company or anything like that. What I do is I have relationships with custodians where I can park that money there, but there's a document I can have you sign saying, hey, I give Barry consent to make decisions on my behalf. However, at any time, you can contact that custodian without even me being involved and take every dollar you have out of that account. So that's the difference.
So with you being like, in finance, like what, and you talked about like as far as the percentages of people that look like us, what I'm saying, not being represented. How difficult was it? Because like you said, like if you don't come from that lineage of money, like how you gonna talk to me about money and you don't got no money? You know what I'm saying? So how was you able to get over that?
That was what you're talking about right now my greatest victory, because I was so insecure about talking to people about money because I didn't come from money and I didn't have any money. And so how do you offer something to someone else that you don't have? And they always say, you got to fake it till you make it, and I had to fake it until I made it on paper. But what I learned along the way, along that journey, and I'll tell you how I literally got to where I'm at now, is that you can equip yourself with knowledge, and also you can act with integrity. And there are very few people that operate with both. I've met a lot of people who have one or the other, but I've not met too many people who have both. And in the area of finance, I learned that even though I didn't have a lot of money, that I could still give myself away in those areas to people. And over time, I can build credibility, because as they begin to say yes to me, then eventually I now have credibility because I have clients. And then if I take care of them, they take care of me by introducing me to more people. So when I started my business, I didn't have a whole lot of money. I had enough money, honestly. I went to the Salvation Army, I bought a suit. And I wore the same suit. I didn't even have enough money to put gas in my car sometimes. This is a true story. And what I did was I would go out on my lunch break. Or really, not even just my lunch break. I would go out during the lunch hour. So I worked downtown Norfolk where I started. And I worked for a big company at the time. And it was commission only, so no salary, no nothing. And it was in an area where there's a lot of, big firms in the area, a lot of restaurants. So I'd go out around 10 a.m. and I wouldn't come back into my office until I introduced myself to 30 people. And I would say, hi, my name is Barry Queen. I just want to introduce myself. Have you ever heard of blah, 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 the company I work for? And they say, no, I never heard of that. And I would say, well, we're one of the largest companies you've ever heard of in the country. We specialize in helping people with stocks, bonds, mutual funds, different things you may have read about in the newspapers. Have you had a fact finder done recently? And they say, a fact finder, what is that? And I say, a fact finder is where we sit down in a confidential manner and we talk about your short and your long-term financial goals. Now, during that conversation, I'm not going to make any recommendations to you, but if there's any things that I uncover, I love the opportunity to come back and talk with you about some recommendations that I might have for you. Now, I did that 30 times a day.
I was about to say, because you had that down packed right there.
Yeah,
I'm like, yeah, you talking to me right now? Can we make an appointment? Nah, but
30 times a day. Now, was I this savant who had all of his language? No, but I learned this script and I had the heart to introduce myself. So I remember at that time, meeting a client, a person who's still my client now, who happened to be an up and coming lawyer, black woman. She says, I'll meet with you. I was like, okay. And I sat down with her. She said, how can I help you? I want to do some business with you. So next thing you know, what's so interesting, she's one of the top lawyers in Virginia now. Met another person who was a doctor. He says, you can come to my house. So it's so interesting that I literally, that's where I started, from nothing. Now, going back to what your original statement was, I remember hearing no so many times that I had to go walk off and cry on the side for a second. I'm honest, because I felt like when you experience rejection at that level, you're introducing yourself to that many people, you kind of don't really feel that significant, especially when you can't pay your bills and you don't really know where your next dollar is coming from. But I would overcome that rejection. I learned how to overcome rejection by just constantly not tying myself to the result. I really tied myself to the action, because I was like, if I keep doing this, I'm eventually going to win. And I won myself over. So I built this level of confidence. So now when I talk to people, I don't care who you are. Are you a millionaire? You a gazillionaire? That means nothing to me. because I built this muscle where I know who I am. And I know who I am because of what I did to get to where I'm at. So it doesn't matter status, title, podcast. I respect this, but I know who I am regardless of whatever platform you put me on, because I had to build this person from scratch, and so it started back when I was 22 years old, and I was just introducing myself, trying to see if you sit down with me and just listen to me talk to you for a couple minutes.
That's crazy. Now I want to go back to your tattoo though, because I believe that's something that he and I both are big on, and we try to encourage our family members to see it that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, I believe everybody has a purpose, right? And what I'm trying to get to is, by you doing what you do for a living, have you established, and do you feel like, yo, this is my God-given purpose? This is why I'm here, or is it part of the purpose?
This is definitely part of my purpose. My purpose is so much bigger than this. There's a verse that I recite to myself. I shall pass his way but once. If there's anything I can do or any act of kindness I can share with any human being, let me do it now. Let me not defer nor neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again. I think, like, you are living in your purpose when you serve. And when you serve, you get more energy, right? Because what we give, we keep. What we hold on to, we lose for a lifetime. When you hold on to things, you only need but so much as an individual. A good meal at a certain point is just a good meal. Like you driving a nice car, eventually is just a car. So for me, what I've recognized is that I fulfill my purpose more when it's not even about me. And so what I've tried to do is just be a lot more open, and constantly be open, and be around people who don't, inflate my head, don't, because it ain't even about me. I'm a steward over what I have. It's not mine. Like it could be taken away from me at any moment. And that's actually probably the greatest thing about my upbringing, is that I understand what it's like to not have a whole lot. So I don't really take it too seriously when I have certain things, because I know those things can come and go, but I know how to be happy regardless of what I have, or regardless of who's patting me on the back, and I think that I bring that level of humility to the table when I'm in that boardroom and I'm talking to people, or when I'm talking to that celebrity, because I don't really care who you are, because at the end of the day, you got the same problems that she has. And in fact, you could take your mask off and just have a real conversation with me right now, because you perform for everyone else, but you don't need to perform for me, because I don't really care. Yeah. And most people who have had a certain level of success, they just want to be human with somebody else. And they actually are overwhelmed by their life because they're so used to having to be all of these things. And because they have to be all these things, what they do is they perform financially for other people. So they live in a house that's too big. They drive a car that they don't really need. They don't talk about issues they have with the IRS, right? Like, so that's how I find myself being the person that I am, and being able to have the credibility I have, because when I talk to them, I get people to undress in front of me. I get people to tell me things that they would never tell another person, because they know they're talking to a real person. And I don't really care, I'm not judging them, I'm just a regular guy.
That's deep, Eric. You know what I'm saying? That's deep. Thinking about your journey, would you say that, even today, you can go from the start into where you are presently, dealing with all of the adversity and the obstacles, like, what do you do? Like, what are some things that you do to, like, keep yourself, like, mentally, spiritually grounded? Like, everybody has their days, no matter how successful or unsuccessful you are. Like you said, we all bleed, we all breathe, So what are some things that you do to like, yo, I need to rebalance myself?
I teach hot yoga. I've been doing that for a little while now. I enjoy that. I get something from that really fills my cup up. Just being able to sow into people. I don't know, when I sow into other people, when I make people feel good, I feel really good. It just does something very special for me. So I do that. I also I'm not apologetic about setting aside time just to be alone, just to be by myself. You know, I get a lot of energy from just being silent. You know, sometimes like just I get rejuvenated by just being, just taking some moments to just reflect on what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking about, and just being honest. I would say I'm privileged enough over this last, 30 something years of my life also to find a few people in my life that have just been a tremendous blessing to me, who I can confide in, who I can talk to. I'm also a man of God, Um, I've been broken down into submission, you know, where I just don't rely on myself too much. I rely on him, and so I start my day and I try to focus on what I'm grateful for because, I say this in my yoga class, the mind is a great servant, but it's a terrible master. And your mind is always going to tell you what's wrong. It's going to tell you how you could get hurt. It's going to tell you everything to protect you from experiencing pain. And so if you rely on your mind to guide you, you're going to be in trouble. You've got to tell your mind what to do. You've got to override that. And so you got to be intentional. And so, I've had moments where I'm like, you know what? I'm overwhelmed or I'm tired. And so I'm very intentional once I hit those moments of, okay, but this is what I need to do now. Right? Or how did I get to this point of feeling this way? And then thinking back on it, what was my routine? Who was I around? What was I doing? And then as I've gotten older, I've learned that, okay, I got to this point because I didn't listen here, or I was around this energy and I knew it wasn't good energy, but I still, right? So now I protect my energy too. I'm very big on that. When I was younger, I would say I was willing to be around just about anybody. But now I'm very careful about the people I surround myself with because I only have so much energy. And my job requires so much of me naturally that I've got to make sure that I'm around people who sow back into me in a positive way or who don't take things away from me emotionally.
All right, so let's put your let's talk about like your actual business and the transition. I know you started off something small, then you had an acquisition of something here locally in the Pasadena, Cali area. Yeah. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I ran my own practice for about 13 years, and I recently purchased a practice here in Pasadena, California. So I was based in Norfolk, Virginia. I lived in Chesapeake, actually, but my office was in Norfolk, Virginia. I was there for almost 7 years. Then I moved to New York, and I was based in Midtown Manhattan for about 7 years. And then I came here to Pasadena, and I purchased a practice that had been in business for north of 20 years and last year. So I kind of combined my business with that practice, and now I operate under the name Precision Planning Financial Group.
Nice.
And we're based in Pasadena, California.
So you were able to you were basically able to consolidate your own book of business with another company's book
Correct.
of business, and
Correct.
Nice.
Yeah. So was
that challenging? Because I know especially in this industry, that book of business is it's like gold.
Yeah. I can make a movie about that. It was a lot of moving parts to that, financially, logistically. But yeah.
Everybody was able to transition over with with no hesitation.
Yeah, it's been a smooth transition, and it's so interesting how things work because the clients that I work with, it's a fit, it's just a fit. And I don't think I'm hard to get along with. I don't think I'm hard to connect with, but I remember one day having a meeting with somebody, and I was really anxious about meeting with this person because I wanted them to be my client so bad. This was years ago. And I was like, man, I'm over preparing. I'm like doing everything I can. I'm like, I need this business. I need this client. And I remember sitting down, and like I said, I take moments sometimes just to be quiet. And God spoke to me in that moment, and he said, I have already decided who is your client. You just need to find them. And it gave me the most peace I've ever had in my life. And from that day forward, I never get nervous when I get in front of somebody. Because the way I look at it is, it's either you are or you're not.
Yeah.
So I don't feel the pressure that I used to feel, because it's like it's already been ordained. Like it's already
been written.
It's already. So like when I meet people and they're like, you're a financial advisor, you're like, they're already ready for me to try to sell them or whatever, and I'm like, nah.
Right.
Like, and don't get me wrong, I'm not complacent in any way, but I just feel a certain amount of peace. And with the clients, going back to it, it's a smooth transition because it's that same energy. It's like the way that it happened, as far as me coming in and being the guy that's working with you, I'm supposed to be the guy here. And you'll figure that out. And they have. And so, yeah. And I'm looking to continue to build that business. I'm extremely excited. Over the next 2 to 3 years, I already have the vision. We're going to have a location in New York. We're going to have an office in either Northern Virginia or Maryland. We're going to have an office in Florida. Probably going to have an office in Texas. And it's going to happen. And I have no doubt in my mind, right? And yeah, and how that happens, I don't know exactly. I have an idea, but I know it will happen.
It's dope.
Yeah, that's real good. So let's change it up a bit. What do you think is more important, love or money?
Love. I've met too many people. I've had over 5,000 meetings in my career. And why I tend to speak so strongly about certain things is I've had some of the most intimate conversations you can imagine with people. Because when you start talking to people about their money, you're talking to people about some real deep things. And I've spoken to young people. I've spoken to old people. I've been the guy at the funeral who has the money that's going to make sure the family can stay together. Who talked to the guy who's now dead, but who was the guy that planned with him and his wife at the kitchen table, or who planned with him to make sure his business would stay intact. So for me, love, is essential, because love, what are we doing all this for? I've met so many people who are not happy. And, like I said, I know people and I've worked with people and I have clients that have so much. And I've had those same people come to me and just tell me how unhappy they are. Love is everything. Love is the reason why I do what I do. Money is not enough, because there's something in the financial industry called utility. Okay, this is a real terminology. So what utility measures is one's level of happiness in relation to how much money they make. So studies show that at a certain income level, regardless, there's a level of happiness that you won't experience over a certain level of income. So once you, for example, hit this income threshold, if your income doubles or triples, it won't change your level of happiness, because going back to what I said before, a bed is a bed, a meal is a meal. What makes people really happy is this. It's communion, it's community, it's connecting, it's relationships. When people don't have genuine relationships and they don't have people that they feel like they can connect with, who understand them, who know them, that's where people feel completely lost.
So let me ask you something. So if you can choose from two things, right? Like as far as identify yourself with, one, do you identify yourself with an achieved person, or two, a fulfilled person?
Definitely fulfilled. I used to live like an achiever. So the way that I would structure my life is, this is my day, and in order for it to be a successful day, I have to do all of these things. And, for me, it's not about how many things can I do. It's more about, what do I want to accomplish today? What is my purpose for that day? And then how can I do those things well? That's the way I think now, and because we're human, like we, I've called people, I've sat down with people who have a couple of hours left to live. I've talked to people on their deathbeds, like all these things, a lot of times that we do to make us happy, don't matter. They really don't. And unfortunately, a lot of us have to experience so much life to get to the point where we're like, damn, like that didn't even really matter. Like what matters is really simple. Honestly, it's really simple. We as humans make life really complicated. We overcomplicate life. It's actually really simple, and I've seen so much death that I appreciate life. Like honestly, if you want to be real, I've seen and experienced so much loss that I don't overcomplicate life. But life kind of just broke me into that submission. It broke me there. And I'm fulfilled. And there's nothing wrong with that said. With being an achiever, I'm a Kappa, right? So, achievement in every field of human endeavor is our motto, right? And I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. For some people, I said I'm a Kappa. So
let me throw it out there.
Yeah, let me make it clear. I'm a Kappa, and we're all about achievement. That's a big part of our mantra. But you've got to put achievement in its proper context. Because what is achievement? Is achievement how much money you have in the bank? Is it how good of a relationship you have with your kids? Is it how you take care of your body? Is it the relationship you have with God? Right? Because for me, achievement is a balance of all those things. It's not just one thing. But what happens is we come up with this definition of achievement a lot of times that's very, very overweighted in one area. And then once we experience achievement in that area, we're not that happy because all these other things that are really important to us haven't really been nurtured, And for me, I try to my definition of achievement is focusing on the whole person, right? The physical, the spiritual, the emotional, the financial, all of those parts of who Barry is, not just one.
So as a planner, right, just speaking speaking in a general sense, right? So we all have dreams, goals, aspirations, and things that we would like to pursue. Oftentimes you hear people say, I don't got no plan B. It's all or nothing, right? So how many times should one fail before you admit and realize that, maybe this is just not for me? Or should you just continue to just go at it dumbfounded?
I think you should always be open. You've got to let go of what you had in mind a lot of times in life. I had no idea I was going to be living in California. If you would have told me when I was in college in Virginia that I would be here at this time, I would say you're lying. There's no way. And what has happened over the course of my life and to answer your question is I've not been willing to allow life to show me where it wants to take me. That's where I've experienced the greatest amount of frustration in my life, where I'm fighting life. Life is trying to tell me, no, get out of this relationship. No, this business was your stepping stool. Don't keep these doors open. Close them. It doesn't mean you failed just because you close the doors, right? But when you have your plan and you are like, no, this is what it is, I find that you only frustrate yourself and you take that much longer to step into what your real purpose is. And you've got to have people around you that can keep you balanced and that can be honest with you and be like, look, man, like, you really, like, take a look at this. I'm not saying you should do it, but just think about it, right? Being open, like, I'm constantly hoping that I'm open. You know, I want to be open. You know, I want to learn new things. That's why I'm really big on just constantly learning. You know, because when you learn, they said I don't. You know, one of the things that you learn, the more you learn, is that you learn that you don't really know a whole lot. You know, because you just constantly learning new things. You're like, man, I didn't even realize this. You know, so just staying open. I think that's the most important thing, is just to stay open. With that said, the common denominator that I found amongst people who are quite successful in life is that you've got to be stubborn. It's finding the balance between being open and being stubborn. So this is what I mean by being stubborn. Being stubborn is, I will not be broken. It doesn't matter how much money I have. It doesn't matter who affirms me. It doesn't matter what platforms say come on board. I'm going to make it. I'm going to be a good father. I'm going to be a good husband. I'm going to be a good friend. That's what I mean when I say stubborn, right? The method is what I think we should be more open to. Mm-hmm. That's what I think we should be more open to, more flexible about.
Okay. All right. Let me see. So I got this question I prepared for you, right? You may have looked at it. I sent it out.
Okay.
All right. It's date night. All right.
Yeah.
Come home from work, baby. Put your nice dress on. Let's go out. Let's go get something to eat. All right. Where would you like to go? She says, oh, you know that nice restaurant on the rooftop, right?
Yeah.
You guys get there. Jazz is playing in the background. Lights is dim. You walk, you're seated. All right, you hungry because you knew you was coming to this restaurant. You hungry, so you ready to eat. Sit down at the table. You say, darling, babe, boo, babe, whatever it is. What would you like to eat? She said, I don't know. Just get something for me. I said, okay, but I know what I want, but I'm just asking you. And so waiter comes. You order. Your wife, your significant other, your girl, she orders. You get your food because you've been waiting on this plate, this meal all day. Her food comes. She's not so satisfied by the way it looks. She grabs her fork, reaches to your plate, and eats your food. Are you A, going to switch? Like, you know what? You obviously want this more than me. Let me give this to you. Or you going to get an attitude and be like, I asked you what you wanted to order. All right, which one we going with?
Well, I've actually had this experience, and 100% of the time, I'm gonna give you my food. There's something to be said for caring for somebody, and for me as a man, as a significant other to somebody that I really care about, I could never eat that food without them eating. We either gonna share it or you're gonna eat, and I'll wait.
I ask you what you want, though.
Yeah, this is a controversial statement. This is a controversial statement. Do women really ever know what they want to eat?
Hey, man, you can leave me out of that.
Hey, honestly, you should definitely run for politics. Great answer.
I don't know. So I would say I'm offering my meal. Or you know what? I'm gonna take the L and I just won't even eat because she might not even like it. And we just gotta both, I'm gonna wait with her. We're gonna suffer together. We're gonna suffer together. Yeah.
All right, Julian, so you got anything you want to chime in on that? What would you do?
So I'm definitely ordering another, but I'm not sharing my meal. Like, you know what? Hey, order, give her what she wants. Exact same thing. Like, nah, I'm just kidding.
You're not kidding, bro. All right, but ladies and gentlemen, we're coming to the end of our show. As I do all the time, I open up the microphone to our guests and to our hosts to share any words of wisdom, anything you want to leave the listeners and the viewers. Today, we're going to start out with our guest, Mr. Barry. Is there anything you would like to leave with our listeners?
Yeah. Don't make a decision about life today based on a temporary circumstance. Don't draw a conclusion. That's probably the best advice or thought I have for people. Life can change so quickly. It can change for the good so quickly. You know, um, and for those people who are experiencing life and it's great, don't take it for granted because life can just as much as it can change for the good quickly, it can go left.
Yeah.
And so be appreciative, be thankful because you never know what tomorrow is going to bring. That's probably the best advice I can give.
Well said. GQ Nesto.
If you love her, share your food. If you don't, just go to the bathroom and don't come back. But anyways, no, just want to obviously thank everybody for tuning in, and definitely we appreciate your support, and that's basically it.
For sure. And man, I would just say go after it. Whatever it is, find that happiness. And GQ Nesto and Barry, we were very big on being a service to someone. You like find joy in helping someone. I think we forget about that sometimes. But we love you. We thank you. Tune in next time. We see you guys next time. We are Option Forward. We're out.